World at this point. I'm Don Emilio Zeno, the host of this year interview, which for all intents purposes shall be uploaded on YouTube for international viewers to enjoy. But what I'm excited about today, folks, is that for the very first time, I'm interviewing a man that I find quite fascinating. And the reason being, he knows a whole slew of people. I mean, not only is he an accomplished book publisher and probably has written some books himself, maybe we'll ask him soon, but he's also an expert connoisseur, for lack of better words, in the ufological field. Now, some of you are wondering, what's this guy talking about? Ufology is the study of UFOs. It's using the scientific approach because we now believe that 80% of the world population, that's right, folks, 80% of the world population believe in the existence of UFOs, which may be vehicles from off-world civilizations. And who better to talk to us about that than Mr. Philip Mantel from the UK, and still considered by 5 watts individuals like myself as London, England, the big city. Welcome to this year interview, Philip, and thank you, by the way.
Good afternoon, Don. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, I was kind of excited, because, what you've done. But could you tell us predominantly who you are before we start moving on to the book publishing subject matters?
Yeah. Well, I don't live in London. I live in the north of England. However, I'm a long-standing UFO researcher here in the UK. Began in the late 1970s with a regional local organisation. I live in the county of West Yorkshire. So I joined an organisation called the Yorkshire UFO Society. That was set up by 2 brothers, Graham and Mark Birdsall. I went on to join a national organisation, which was the British UFO Research Association. Worked for them in many different aspects, Don. I was their press officer, conference organiser, director of investigations. I was also the MUFON representative for England for a while as well. So I kind of left organised sort of UFO groups, and after a period of ill health, just carried on my own. And that brings me right up to date. I work with, colleagues and people around the world, really, built up these contacts down the decades.
Am I permitted to ask you what you did as a career post your high school graduation or university or college or what have you? I mean, just to give people a barometer meeting of the persona that I have in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to university. I left high school at 16 with very few academic qualifications. After trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do as a teenager, I ended up working in industry as a technician. And I was also part of the trade union movement. I was a trade union shop steward, both part-time and full-time, on and off for a number of years as well. Had to leave industry because of a health problem I had. And I ended up going quite in the opposite direction. I ended up working for a bank. It was totally different compared to being in industry all my life. And I worked at a very large contact centre in the centre of the city of Leeds. So there I worked in various roles.
When you say contact centre, are you referring to a call centre?
Part of it was a call centre, yes, but it did much more than that.
Okay.
So there was a part of it was a call centre. We also had the fraud department based there. A lot of admin. Our planning department was based there. The planning department sorted out all your working hours, your holidays, and so on. I worked in that for a while. I was also part of the training department for a while as well. So any new employees, I would actually participate in their training and assist them after their training. And then admin, So I did a whole variety of roles within the bank. It was the Halifax Bank, which was then bought out by Lloyd's Banking Group.
Oh
Worked for
yeah.
them. Worked for them until just the other year, and then I got the chance to take early retirement at 60. So I did, and there you go. I don't no looking back. I don't regret it at all, Don.
So you've been in the ufological studies, the way I call it, for the last, what is it, 45, 50 years almost?
Just over 40 years, yeah. I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
started when I was 21, really, and I'm
Good
now
for you.
61. So it's 40 years, and that's 2/3 of my life, Don. And I
I
think,
hear you. I hear you. I'm from your generation, as
yeah.
you can see. I'm a couple of years older than you, but be as it may, it is so fascinating. I mean, I was myself struck by the ET UFO beliefs at a very young age, way back in the 60s. As far as I can think, it must have been, I was 10 years old. And then that led to many, a plethora of other things. But back to you now, if I may. So did you started reading books, checking out videos, VHS videos in those days, and reading up on the phenomenon, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was always interested in all things paranormal as far back as I can remember. And of course,
Right.
the only source of any information was to read about it in those days, as Don. I was quite fortunate. My best friend's grandmother lived the opposite side of the road from us, and she
Hmm.
used to go to the Spiritualist church. So I went there a few times with her, and whilst I found it interesting, I came away with more questions than answers, you know. And then I suppose I was somewhere around about 14. I remember reading a newspaper article about UFOs, and that kind of interested me more than the paranormal stuff.
That kind of put a spell on you. And by the way, folks, for anyone across the world listening to this here wonderful opportunity for me, I hope it is for you as well, Philip. Happy Halloween week, because it is today, October 30th, and tomorrow's Halloween for all intents purposes. But mm, so you developed a liking to the paranormal, but specifically UFOs. Why UFOs?
Well, I think it all, I think I didn't realize it probably at the time then, but that newspaper article kind
Hmm.
of intrigued me. So I was always curious, Don. I was always the type of young fella that wanted an answer, but I wanted to find the answer for myself. For example, if there was a big button that said "Don't push," I'd want to know what happened if you did push it. You know. So
I hear
so
you.
it was the same with UFOs. I could have just been content to read books and carry on, but the book was the button. I wanted to know what happened when you pressed the button. So I left high school, like a lot of teenagers, didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in, but continued reading. Then, of course, the Spielberg blockbuster Close Encounters came out,
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
I went to work in Germany for a short while, not speaking the language. Of course, I couldn't sit down on an evening and watch the TV. So again,
Right.
it was reading or down the pub, and when I came back home, my interest had intensified. Now, my aunt lived just round the corner from us, and a local newspaper, she brought it round, and there was literally a small column-inch advertisement in this for the first meeting of the Yorkshire UFO Society. That's Sunday. Now, on a Sunday here in the UK, back in 1979, everything used to close. I mean, it
Yes,
was it.
yes.
Yeah. But anyway, I got on a bus. I went into the city of Leeds where this event was taking place. I found the location, and there was about 25, 30 people there. The organisers were Graham and Mark Bursell brothers. They put on a presentation, and I never looked back, Don. I just felt I was at home, and I joined there and then. For about 6 months, they used to have monthly meetings. I would just sit there and take it all in, buy the books and the magazines that were available and just soak it all up. But again, that was never enough. I
So
wanted
you
to
were
know
you
more.
were my understanding from all of this, even though you were a college or quasi college dropout. In other words, you've never been to college.
Never been to college, no.
Right, like which is my case as well. I finished high school and I barely finished college, so I'm a college dropout. But uh, you started reading books and books and books on the subject matter. Would you consider yourself an avid UFO book reader?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've got books lying around me all piled up
I
all
can
over
see
even
that.
now.
Yes, yes. I can see that. What a great testimonial. So you've read many, many, many books on the subject matter.
I forget how many I've read, Donna. My mum, I think I inherited that from my mum. She was always a great reader, not UFOs. She liked romantic novels and things like that. But we were always surrounded by paperback books, there were always books in
Right,
the house. So,
right.
and she wasn't an educated lady by any respect, but she loved to read till her dying day.
Well, let me tell
She
you
just read.
something. When you're well read, you're well bred in
Well,
my
yeah.
book. I mean,
So,
yeah,
even when I was working in industry, during my lunch break, book, book, book. Even
right.
though you could only get maybe 2 or 3 pages read in a short period of time, and you've got to feed yourself as well. I always had a book with me. So that and joining the Yorkshire UFO Society, I think I was very fortunate because Graham and Mark had already been involved for a while.
Right.
And we have a national park here in North Yorkshire. It's called the Yorkshire Dales National Park.
Hmm.
Areas in and around the Yorkshire Dales, for whatever reason, at this period, Don, had a lot of UFO sightings. And of course, they found their way to us at the Yorkshire UFO Society. So uh, I was thrown in at the deep end, if you like, because the sightings were there to be investigated. And that's what I wanted to do. So off we went. And I learnt the ropes from Graham and Mark. Um, I remember Graham at a presentation he gave at the last conference he ever did. Sadly, he's no longer with us. He literally said Philip learnt the UFO business from the ground upwards, which is perfectly true. And of course, I rather naively, Don thought, you know, I'll get all the answers I want, read a few books, go speak to a few people, no problem, young and naive. And of course, I soon realized that was not going to be the case, but it didn't put me off. It just made me more and more intrigued, and I got more and more involved, and that was it. We were up and running.
When did you start publishing your first book, and did it have to do with UFOs? In other words, my layman question is, do you specialize in UFO ET matters, or do you publish any type of book?
No, I mean, I'd authored and co-authored a number of books before I started publishing. In 2015, I was sent a book manuscript by a colleague of mine in Poland. It's called Peter Cielebias. Now, this wasn't for publishing. Peter speaks excellent English, but his written English wasn't that great. So this for him, Peter is a UFO researcher, magazine editor. He wanted to practice his written English. And he said,
Right.
would you read it, Philip? So I read it and I thought, this would make a damn fine book. Needs a bit of editing. Now, a colleague of mine by the name of John Hanson already had set up himself as a publisher. He have a look at Haunted Skies. I'll say no more than that. Excellent series of books that John's done. John's an ex-police detective. And he said, Philip, why don't you publish it? And he showed me how to do it. So I thought, well, why not? It's
So you've been in the book publishing as per se for the last 5 years.
Coming up 5 years, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
2015. Yeah.
which is amazing because I've been following you now for approximately 1.5 years only. I forget how I came across you. Could have been Facebook, but I was quite fascinating. And then when you presented me Calvin Parker, which is your protege, and rightfully so, because you know how I feel about Calvin Parker. He's on the same pedestal, I would say, as Roswell and the Rendlesham Forest event, way back in December, I forget, 1980. Was it 1980?
It was October the 11th, 1973.
No, not the Calvin, the other one, the Rendlesham
Rendlesham
Forest
incident. It was late
December
December
1980.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all these are on the same pedestals, but for some reason, our good American friends and bullies, I call them bullies right to their faces, and they laugh because they like that compliment. They're always pushing Roswell, but Roswell was only one of the many UFO stories, as you know. But the spotlight, the squeaky wheel always gets the oil, as they say. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, back to us. So now people come to you from all walks of life, especially in the ufology world, wanting you to publish their books. Is that correct? Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I mean, I decided right from the beginning what I would like to do is to publish items that perhaps we've never seen in the West before, like the Polish cases. Might have seen one or two of them in a magazine, but the vast majority of them, never. I followed that up with a book from Romania. From the guy who wrote it is Dan Farkas, PhD. Again, you might have been familiar with one or two of the events, but the vast majority of them never seen the light of the day in English. So that's always been my remit. And I like to dig into old stuff and republish it where I get the chance, But it's just me, Don. I have no financial backer, no experience in doing this. It was a steep learning curve, and I'm still learning. So I apologize for any mistakes I've made, but, that's the way it goes,
Whether we like him or not, President Trump has taught us one thing: deal or no deal. So you're the real deal, and I know for a fact. Listen, this is not a trick question, because we're not, folks. I've got to tell you, we are not prepared. We have not prepared. Will you vouch for that for this interview? This is coming from the heart. Will you vouch for that? Yeah, it's from the heart. I mean, Philip and I, chat and talk every once in a while. And I said, hey, Philip, I'd like to interview you and put you on YouTube. As most of you know by now, I am the CEO founder of VIP Internet Radio, which is growing leaps and bounds, fair enough. And I'm very, very proud of that because of my U.S. partners. But I'm also, my full-time job is call center business, which I've been doing for the last 20 years. And it's callcentersplus.com, as you see in my background here, my little home studio. But enough bragging about that. And what I tell people, I have my serious side during the day where I take care of call center and VIP Internet radio matters. And at night, I love to chase UFOs. And I keep joking about it. I say it's cheaper to chase, safer to chase UFOs than women at my age. And my wife of 38 years says, you know what? It's time for you to go to sleep. Yes, honey. Good night. And off I go to La La Land. But back to us. Here's my final question for you. You got involved in the recounting of a story called the Roswell autopsy that had a lot of nebulous surroundings over the last 25 years. Can you talk to us about that? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything else. I've heard all kinds of rumors, good and bad. Could you clear that for our viewers once and for all?
Yeah, well, we go back to 1993, and I was at that time with the British UFO Research Association, and I was their press officer, among other things. And a letter arrived on my desk. All press inquiries came to me. you know, and it was from Merlin Communications, the Merlin Group. The guy at the bottom was called Ray Santilli. He asked if we would be able to assist in the making of a UFO documentary. Nothing out of the ordinary, you know. So I wrote back, told him what we could and couldn't do. Ray Santilli came back to us and said, can you provide video clips, photographs? I said, no, but I know where you can get these from. So I put him in touch with a couple of businesses that had these items. So then we started to speak on the telephone. At some point, it changed from, oh, I want to make a general documentary, to, oh, I've got a story for you. I have actually got film of the Roswell crash, and I've got the aliens being dissected. Well, okay, you know, instant question, show me. That's a great statement you've made there. Show me. Yes, I can. No, I can't. Yes, I can. No, this went on and on and on. So in the end, I met him. I met Ray Santilli in London. He told me the story where he'd been in the US looking for old clips of Elvis and Pat Boone before they were famous. That was part of his business. He ran a music business. And he said, I met this old guy, I bought a piece of Elvis footage off him. It was out of copyright, so it was cash, no questions asked. And he said he told me that he'd been a military cameraman in 1947 and had filmed the crash at Roswell. And he had some reels of film about it. I bought them cash, and I'm going to commercialize them. So again, show me. I've got another business partner. He won't allow it. Yes, he will. So I said, look, forget it. You know, rubbish. So in 1995, we now jump forward. I've been arguing with this guy for a year and a half. I was also Bufora's conference organizer. So in early 1995, I had a conference in Sheffield already done, organized for August of that year. A video dropped through my letterbox, which was Roswell the movie, which was made by Paul Davids. It was coming out in UK. It was only a minor release here, but they'd sent me a review copy. So I thought, wonder if that chap Santilli still claims to have this Roswell film. So I got his business card out of my file, phoned him up. He says, yes, I do, Philip, but you don't believe me, because I'd already told him to get lost, you know. I said, well, I can't believe you until you show me. So he said, okay, make an appointment with my secretary and I'll show you. So I made an appointment. This was early 1995. My wife and I drove to London, met him at his office, and hey presto, he started to show us the alien autopsy. It was on a video cassette, put it in the player. And at least I knew then, Don, there was some film. You know, whether it was real or authentic or not, there was film. It wasn't just a story. So on the spot, I says to him, I tell you what, why don't you show that at our conference I've already got organised for later this year? Didn't think for a moment he would agree. He said, okay, on one condition. I said, what's that? He said, you help me research the film. Shook hands on it, no money, no contract, nothing like that involved. Because while I've been talking to Ray Santilli, he'd made it quite clear at that point he was going to commercialise this film and he was going to put it on a video and just sell it. So there was no television involved. And I thought this needs to get out into the public domain. And by doing that, surely we'll get to find out more information. Ray was playing his cards very close to his chest, but I thought once it's out in the public, you know, somebody might come forward and say, that's me, I'm one of the actors, or that was filmed at my studio, or no, that was my grandfather. He really told me about this, you know, whatever. So further down the line, there was a point in time where television became involved, Fox in the US, for example. Ray Santilli stuck to his agreement. The first time it was seen in public was at our conference in Sheffield. And it was a huge storm of controversy, as one might imagine, Don. It went around the world. Cutting a long story very short, I was determined to get to the bottom of it. And, just 1 minute. I just got to put you on hold 1 second.
Folks, this year's segment of Philip Mantel interview is being brought to you by callcentersplus.com. Callcentersplus.com. Center spelled with an S for any organization who's looking for any organization who's looking for a bona fide call center for their inbound, outbound customer service. I figured I would do a live commercial while you're gone to answer the door. And you know what? When I heard the knocking, folks, this doesn't get any better. This is what we call live radio podcasting. I was looking out the window in my office, seeing if somebody was knocking outside my door.
It was a package I was waiting for, so I couldn't turn them away. So going back to the alien autopsy film, I was determined to get to the bottom of it. Mm-hmm. Got some little hints that it maybe was fake, but no definitive proof done. You couldn't, they weren't wearing a digital watch or things of that nature. So I kept digging. Santilli kept changing his story as the more we uncovered. So we bring it forward in time, and we're contacted eventually by a man called Spiros Malaris. Spiros is of Greek origin, but lives in London. He's a magician. He ran a large TV studio. He's been a filmmaker, a whole host of things. All turns out that Spiros was the man that led the team that faked it. The sculptor behind it.
Now, hold it. I need to interject here.
Yeah.
Did I understand that faked it?
Faked. 100% faked. Yeah.
So are we today, I can mention the date, October 30th, 2019. Was this Ray Santilli Roswell autopsy real or a fake, once and for all, according to you?
It's fake.
You're confirming that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a 100% fake.
Wait, okay. They went as far, from what I recall, I haven't seen that in 20 years, 25 years, whatever it is. Did they not hire the Jonathan Frakes actor to narrate that thing?
Yeah, Jonathan Frakes was the narrator on the Fox alien autopsy.
What happened when Fox found out later on, just like you did, that it was a fake?
Fox did nothing.
Ramification? Nothing? They just covered it up and let it be?
They didn't cover it up. They just left it alone. I mean, you have to remember, Fox are a television company. They're out to make money.
They're a huge organization. Okay,
yeah.
Go
ahead. They made their money out of it.
What about the people like myself that truly believed that we had something? I got fooled. Your Honor, I'm guilty as charged. I was fooled.
Yeah, well, you weren't alone in that.
No, that's fine. But I'm saying, what happened? Anything you can share with us in terms of what happened that you know of? Because you got, according to what I'm listening here, you got fooled as well.
Yeah, kind of. But see, I always had certain doubts. But when you got to know Ray Santilli, you had to decide what to do, Don. He made it quite clear that if you confronted him, he would just cut you dead. Like Stanton Friedman. Cut you dead in what? He wouldn't cooperate with you at all.
Oh, but you mean it. You mean it metaphorically, not literally.
Yeah, metaphorically. For example, Stan Friedman met him and had a little interview with him. And then Stan faxed him a list of demands, not requests, not questions, but demands. And Santilli just put the fax straight in the bin. So what I decided...
And you don't mind now, this is where my hosting experience comes in. Did you cut ties with Ray Santilli?
No, not at all. No, not for a long, long time. What I did was, in public and to Ray's face, I supported the film. So I would say to Ray, you show him it's fake. You know, they say it's fake, Ray. You show him it's not. But behind the scenes, myself and a number of colleagues in different parts of the world were trying to get to the bottom of it. We were like the proverbial duck, all calm on the top with the little legs going like mad underneath. So, you know, for years I maintained that stance, Don. But what I would do my best to still keep it in the public domain. For example, when the film came out, I expected somebody somewhere to step forward, either for or against it, say I was involved in it in one way or another. Nothing. Not a thing. Nobody came forward and said, I'm one of the actors. I supplied the props. It's my studio it was filmed in. Or that's my granddad, that's my father, whatever, you know, nothing. Okay, UFO researchers argued for and against it, which is fine, but nobody came forward and claimed involvement for a long time. Then we started to get little cracks appear where people that had been involved on the periphery started to come forward. So once we got the first foot in the door of actually going down the road to proving it being a fake, you could accuse it of being a fake, but accusing it and proving it are two different things. It's like you can accuse somebody of being guilty of murder, but accusing someone and proving it is entirely different.
But did Ray Santilli admit to anything, just like you have?
He admitted that the film you see is, in his opinion, not a recreation. He claims it's being restored. Now, if you go back to Ray's original story, he said, the film you see here, and you could buy a copy from him, don't forget, is the original. It even says so on the literature that he sent out. This is all the genuine article. He then, down the line, went to do a movie. He was doing a movie and he changed his story. He said, no, what you actually see is a restoration. Most of the film was actually gone, deteriorated. I was only left with a few snippets. So we restored it. Well, he didn't restore it. He made the film. And there were no snippets of film either. The film that you've seen on Fox or wherever was made by a chap by the name of Spiros Malaris. Spiros, you know, used to be a filmmaker. He was a magician. He met Santilli quite by chance. Santilli told him the same bogus story he told the rest of us. But at that point, he had no autopsy film. He had a piece of film that had been made, but was of poor quality. So Spiros, being a joker and a magician, and got a wicked sense of humor, said, I can make you one. My best friend is a sculptor by the name of John Humphreys, Royal Academy trained. Some of his work has overlapped into the film and television industry. He's not a special effects artist, he's a sculptor. So that's when the Alien Autopsy film was born. Spiros designed and built the set. They actually built the set in his sister's apartment because she was having it renovated at the same time. They hired the props from different locations and were sent to a different address. So there was no paper trail to any one address. The props had to look new. So you couldn't just go and hire them from a museum because they were old. They had to look new. And he, this is where Santilli's story falls down about it being a restoration. It's because there's actually two autopsy films that have been made. You've only seen one, but there is another. I've seen it. So it's like if you were restoring the Mona Lisa, would you make two? No, you wouldn't. You'd just restore the one that we've all seen in the Louvre, you know? You wouldn't just do another one just in case.
I wouldn't do any of that. That's very dangerous business. No, but anyways, but tell us now as a denouement to this whole story, okay? So we understand, according to your sincere belief, it was a fake, but according to what you're seeing, no one did anything wrong. It was purely entertainment.
No. I mean, technically, it's fraud. You know,
Oh,
Santilli
is
said,
it?
well, I'm not a lawyer. I've got no legal training, but technically, Santilli sold this film to Fox and TV companies around the world as being
as, as
legitimately
being
critical.
the as being the real deal. So,
Yeah.
were there, to your knowledge, were there any ramifications in the last 10 years post that transaction?
You mean from the TV companies or a legal
Yeah. In other
position?
words, did they accuse Santilli of fraud or anything?
No, no.
So they let it be, and it was
They've just left it alone.
entertainment,
Yeah.
and everybody went their merry way. But now there's a resurgence of the Roswell autopsy book that you've talked about in the last year. Can you talk to us about that and what that wants to prove? Why are
Yeah.
you involved in that book?
Well, I wrote a book. It's called Roswell Alien Autopsy. It's published a couple of years back. But interest in the alien autopsy film was rekindled earlier this year when there was an email dump online. And this was an email thread from the National Institute of Discovery Sciences, which was Bigelow's organization back in 2000, 2001. And the
Excuse me,
thread,
yes.
yeah, the thread it involves Hal Puthoff, Dr. Eric Davis, Dr. somebody else, and of course, Dr. Christopher Kit Green. It's mainly about him. Now, they're asking Kit Green to clarify some of his earlier statements. What Kit Green claims in these emails is that for those that are not aware, he used to work for the CIA. He's an MD, he's a medical doctor, amongst many other things. He claims that in 1987, 88, he was taken to the Pentagon by the CIA and shown an alien autopsy film. 87, 88. And that this film was, quote, the same as the one released in 1995 by Ray Santilli. He then goes on to give his own medical opinion on the Santilli film. I'm actually mentioned in these emails because I helped them get a copy of the alien autopsy film from Ray Santilli. Com Kelleher was the other chap that's involved. And he goes on, as those that are copied in also confirmed that their belief that Santilli's film was real.
Hold that thought. And by the way, I'm not trying to light any fires here, okay? But I am inquisitive as per my own curiosities. Do you think that someone out there, powers that be, because you've mentioned some heavyweight names like Puthoff and Green and so on and so forth, do you think that one day they'll actually have an international investigation on this whole Roswell autopsy matter and bring it to the forefront and have an investigation going to put it to bed once and for all?
Well, I thought I'd done that, Don, until this email dump arrived. Now, Richard Dolan interviewed Kit Green on the telephone. Wasn't allowed to play the audio of that, but was able to summarize parts of the interview. Kit Green then had done an about face. I contacted another of those mentioned in this email. I'm not allowed to mention his name, but he's one of the names on the list. He confirmed that this email thread was authentic, as did Kit Green. So it is an authentic, email thread. It's not being invented. And he said, however, he said, we've changed our mind since then, Philip. I now believe the alien autopsy films are fake. Kit Green pretty much said the same. However, he went on to say that the film that had been shown by the CIA back in 87, 88, he now believes was a fake. He's not sure why they would show him a fake film and tell him it was authentic. But he still claims that segments from that film, like the face of the creature, the autopsy table, etc., are still the same as that appears in the Santilli film released in 1995. Now, I've pointed out that this is
sorry, go
impossible.
ahead.
You know, Richard Dolan is trying to hint, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, that the CIA somehow had a hand in the fake Santilli film.
Wow. Okay, so here's what my premonition is telling me right now. Of all days, October 30th, 2019, one day prior to a Halloween, that someone powers that be out there listening to this here interview may just get a whole bunch of people and open up an investigation as to what you are attesting to as an indirect witness to all of these parties. And I'm using the word indirect because who am I to use the word direct witness? Fair enough. And this is fascinating. I mean, it's what intrigues humanity as to the secrecy behind the best kept secrets of the world, which is the ET UFO phenomenon. Would you agree with that statement?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, the people mentioned in this email list, you know, never expected this to go public. This was a private email list. I have been in touch.
You've got copies of that in safekeeping. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've got a printout here. It's online anyway. So it's.
Oh, okay. So in other words,
I've been in touch with Kit Green, and he has given me a quote. So I'm gonna update my book, and just one chapter is what I'm going to add to it, just about this email dump and what Richard Dolan has uncovered and myself. Now we go right back to the alien autopsy film itself. And before the film you've seen on TV, what was made was a little black and white film that was called the tent footage. This was first shown to me and other researchers, and it's a poor quality. There's a cadaver on a table covered by a blanket. There's two men in white coats chopping it up. You know, it's a static camera, no sound. Santilli claimed this was sort of the recovery of the creature in the desert, and it was put in either a tent or a barn before it was moved off. And he actually sold that film as part of the package to Fox. And at the last minute he pulled it. Fox were not happy. However, it's not a real it's not authentic. It was made by a gentleman called Keith Bateman. And it goes right back to the late 1993s when Keith made it. Keith used to work with Santilli, and they used to have brainstorming sessions, for want of a better word. Santilli said he'd been out in the States, and somehow Roswell came up in the conversation. And they said, wouldn't it be great if we had some Roswell footage? Just so happened one of Keith's employees had a book that had a little story about Roswell in it. So Keith went off and actually made the tent footage in a barn in Bedfordshire. You know, he got some animal giblets. That's what you see in the background, and so on. He presented that to Santilli. Santilli said, that's not good enough. It's not clear enough. Go away and get me a quote for something better, which Keith did. But Santilli just said, no, leave it. Leave it. But he kept the tent footage, did Ray Santilli. That's where the idea came from. So it didn't come from any CIA manipulation. Keith's a lovely, lovely guy. And again, he's got a wicked sense of humor, you know, and he was intrigued by people honestly believing that the CIA was somehow involved. Keith is the furthest removed from the CIA you could, as far as you could get. He used to run his own little animation studio, and they used to do karaoke videos and other things. They're one of the first companies to start using computer animation, things of that nature. The tent footage was originally filmed in color. I have a color still of it, you know. They changed it to black and white, run it through the computer. I've been and met his colleagues that worked for him at the time, you know, and they've gone on the record, etc., etc. So there is no way the CIA were involved in faking the alien autopsy film. It started with that little meeting that day between Keith and Ray Santilli. And they used to just think of the craziest things. to try and make some money.
With your kind understanding, something tells me that there's going to be a prequel to this YouTube video that's going to come out in the following days, hopefully as early as tomorrow, October 31st, 2019, with your blessing and permission, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yes. And something tells me that MIC military industrial complex, for lack of better words, which incorporates CIA, NSA, Men in Black, call it whatever you want, may just pick up the phone in the near future and give you a call and see what that mind of yours carries as any plausible evidence to all that's been shared with on this video.
Hey,
it's very fascinating.
That might have been them knocking on the door earlier. I've just sent them packing.
No, but I'm just saying, but here's what I'm telling you as a newfound friend of some kind. I'm telling you, you have enough knowledge and pizzazz and material to actually create your own, what's the word that I'm looking for? Because, we're not prepared for this, but documentary, the Philip Mantel witness documentary to all of this.
Yeah.
25 years later, 25, which I think you should co-produce with the people listening to you, because I'm fascinated. I think you have enough of a storyline to share, because I think that people 25 years later are still intrigued by this Roswell autopsy ordeal, for lack of better words.
What I intend to do with the revised edition of my book, for example, is right next to me, I have a filing cabinet, old-fashioned filing cabinet, because a lot of my early research was done in paper, paperwork. So I have literally been going through that the last few days. So I'm going to use as many of the documents as I can and publish them in full. For example, letters from Kodak. Whilst I've summarized this within the text of the manuscript, I'll let you see them all. It's in full. Transcripts of interviews with the various players. Again, I've summarized them. I'll reprint them in the book in full. I've got stuff here from Kodak salesmen back in the 1940s, because we were wanting to know stuff from Kodak. I'll put them in,
as we're nearing the end of our hour, imagine that. We've been on the spieling about this fascinating life of yours, and thank you for that, because I wanted to get to know you a little bit better, because I wrote a book of my life story, but you're not into autobiographies of general people. You specialize in ufology, and that's where your forte is. I can see that. I want to tease you, and I want to encourage you. I think that by next year, 2020, the year of revelation, we'll leave it at that, because otherwise they'll think one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Okay? In my case, I challenge you to find the powers that be that would help you finance a great documentary, a 1 hour or maybe an hour and 30 minutes documentary, which you can sell to Netflix. And I guarantee you that you'd have millions and millions of people across the world viewing that documentary, aka Philip Mantel and the truth behind the Roswell autopsy, something like that. And I guarantee you that would be the greatest accomplishment that you will ever do before we leave the planet, where some UFO will come and abduct us and take us away for good, whenever that may be. I'm being facetious, of course, but I think you should really, really consider that and start working on that. I challenge you. And if there's any way that I can help you in promoting that, because I believe in that, and I've got to believe in something to actually put passion into it. And guess what? No matter what you do in life, if you don't put passion into it, it never gets done. Any closing statement that you may have for us here?
No, I mean, I'm working on the revised edition of the alien autopsy book. So a lot of the little things like this, For example, this might bring a smile to your face, Don.
I
I
already
have
did.
an email from Ray Santilli talking about Alien Autopsy, the musical.
Oh, wow. Okay. You know more. Then there's definitely a sequel to this here YouTube video. I can't wait till we upload it and see the people's reaction. Where can they reach you other than Facebook? Is there an email you want to leave us, or?
No, just go to Flying Disc Press. You'll find it
Okay.
online. It's disc with a K. Flying Disc Press. All my books are there, and there's a contact button. Just press the contact and all my details are there. No problem at all.
Philip Mantel, on behalf of myself, first and foremost, personally, on behalf of callcentersplus.com, on behalf of VIPinternetradio.com, thank you for this heartfelt, profound interview, which I didn't expect, because you know what we wanted to do, and then we shifted Calvin Parker over to one of my colleagues, Victor Vijani, which is going on tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I can't wait for that interview to show up. I mean, this doesn't get any better. It's what we live for, people that are passionate about the whole ET UFO phenomenon. Like I've been saying for years, chasing UFOs is safer and cheaper than chasing women at our age, with all due respect to our female friends. Folks, this is all the time that we have. We want to thank you for the patience that you've invested in listening to Mr. Philip Mantel from the UK. Thank you very much. And Philip, by the way, God bless you. I can only wish you a long and happy life, and hopefully killed by a jealous husband at age 100.
Thank you very much.
I'm being funny, of course. All right. All the best. Thank you very much. And we'll take it from there. Thank you.